בוקר טוב. בוקר טוב וברוכים הבאים. חברים, חברות, בואו נשב. טוב, בוקר טוב לכם. שמי יורם קלמן, ראש המחלקה לניהול וכלכלה כאן באוניברסיטה הפתוחה וחבר הנהלה של המרכז לחקר חדשנות בטכנולוגיות למידה. אני רוצה לברך את כולכם על הגעתכם לכנס החמישה-עשר, כנס צ'ייס החמישה-עשר. אנחנו נפתח בכמה מילות ברכה של נשיאת האוניברסיטה הפתוחה, פרופסור מימי אייזנשטט. בבקשה.
בוקר טוב לכולם וברוכים הבאים לאוניברסיטה הפתוחה. לא הבנתי למה מנופפים, חשבתי אליי. נתחיל עוד פעם. אז בוקר טוב לכולם וברוכים הבאים לאוניברסיטה הפתוחה. אנחנו מאוד מאוד שמחים לארח את הכנס הזה, שהוא כנס כל כך חשוב אצלנו, ובפעם ה-15? 15. אוקיי, סליחה. בהחלט אנחנו על המפה, ואנחנו, חשוב לנו ואנחנו רוצים להמשיך ככה, ומכיוון שיש כאן כנס באמת מלא ועמוס וגדוש בתכנים, והם תכנים מאוד חשובים, אני פשוט אגיד מילה או שתיים, כי באמת חבל על הזמן וכדאי ממש לצלוח לתוך הדברים החשובים של הכנס. אבל ברור שאנחנו מארחים את הכנס הזה, האוניברסיטה הפתוחה, אנחנו מדברים על טכנולוגיות למידה, על חדשנות בטכנולוגיות למידה, אלה דברים שאנחנו עושים כל השנים, והם מאוד חשובים לנו, נמצאים על האג'נדה שלנו, ומי אם לא אנחנו. אז, ודבר נוסף, הכנס היום מוקדש, או התמה מוקדשת לאדם הלומד בעידן הדיגיטלי, ולאחל לכולנו כנס מרתק ומוצלח, ותודה רבה.
תודה רבה מימי. אני רוצה עכשיו להזמין את דיקן הלימודים האקדמיים, כאן באוניברסיטה הפתוחה, פרופסור אופיר מינץ-מנור, בבקשה.
שלום, בוקר טוב וברוכים הבאים. שמי אופיר מינץ-מנור, ואני, כפי שיורם אמר, דיקן הלימודים האקדמיים. זה תפקיד די ייחודי לאוניברסיטה הפתוחה, ומתוקף תפקידי אני אחראי על ההוראה והלמידה של כמעט 50,000 סטודנטים שיש לנו פה באוניברסיטה. אני חוקר ספרות, חוקר של שירה עברית עתיקה, ובשנים האחרונות מאוד עסוק בתחום שמקרב אותי מאוד לתחומים שאתם הולכים לעסוק בהם היום, והוא התחום שנקרא מדעי הרוח הדיגיטליים. ואני רוצה להקדיש כמה דקות ולומר משהו על הקשר בין האדם הלומד או בין טכנולוגיות הלמידה לבין מדעי הרוח הדיגיטליים, תחום שאנחנו גם הולכים ומפתחים כאן באוניברסיטה. ואחת הסיבות שאחרי הברכה שלי, פחות או יותר אחריה, אני אעזוב, מכיוון שאני בדרכי לבית ספר חורף על מדעי הרוח הדיגיטליים בהר הצופים, שבו אני משתתף בפאנל על 20 שנה למאמר יסודי בתחום של חוקר בשם פרנקו מורטי. סתם מתוך עניין, כמה אנשים פה מכירים את השם פרנקו מורטי? תרימו את היד בבקשה, מעניין מאוד. וכבר נותן לי כמה טיפים לקראת הפאנל הערב. ופרנקו מורטי בשביל חוקרי ספרות דיגיטליים הוא הכהן הגדול. ופרנקו מורטי, שהוא חוקר של ספרות מסטנפורד, והקים שם את המעבדה הספרותית הראשונה בעולם, דגם שגם פה אנחנו במסגרת מעבדת המדיה שלנו הולכים לפתח. טבע איזשהו מושג, ואני רוצה להקריא לכם כמה מילים של מורטי, מתוך מאמר שהוא פרסם לפני 20 שנה, מאמר שנקרא באנגלית Conjectures on World Literature, או בעברית השערות על ספרות העולם, ושם מתייחס מורטי למושג שהוא פיתח, ובחקר הספרות, הכלי העבודה אולי הכי בסיסי שלנו הוא מה שנקרא הקריאה הצמודה. זאת אומרת, אנחנו לוקחים את הטקסט וקוראים אותו ממש מקרוב כדי להבין מה התכוון הסופר או מה התכוונה המשוררת. מורטי מציע קונטרה לדבר הזה, הוא הציע את הקונספט של קריאה רחוקה, distant reading, ואני עכשיו אקרא כמה שורות מתוך התרגום לעברית של השערות על ספרות העולם, וכך כותב מורטי: הבעיה בקריאה הקרובה על כל גלגוליה, החל בביקורת החדשה, New Criticism, זרם ספרותי מראשית המאה ה-20, וכלה בדקונסטרוקציה, היא הישענותה בהכרח על קאנון מצומצם ביותר. הנחת יסוד זו, אולי נעשתה ברבות השנים לא מודעת ולא נראית, אבל היא שרירה וקיימת. אנו משקיעים מאמץ רב כל כך במחקר של טקסטים יחידים, אך ורק אם אנו סבורים שמעטים מאוד הטקסטים הראויים לכך. אחרת, אין בזה כל היגיון. אבל אם אנחנו מעוניינים להסתכל על גושים גדולים של טקסט, ופה זאת הנקודה שמעניינת את מורטי, סוג של ביג דאטה ספרותי, הקריאה הצמודה לא תוכננה לעשות זאת. היא תוכננה לעשות את ההפך. במהותה היא תרגיל תיאולוגי. התייחסות חגיגית מאוד למספר מצומצם מאוד של טקסטים הנלקחים ברצינות רבה מאוד. בעוד הדבר שאנו זקוקים לו הוא עסקה קטנה עם השטן. אנחנו יודעים איך לקרוא טקסטים. כעת אבל נלמד כיצד לא לקרוא אותם. 20 שנה עברו מאז, האם הדברים השפיעו במשהו על חקר הספרות? זה הדבר, מי שמעוניין שיכול להגיע טוב, אתם לא יכולים להגיע לארץ צופים היום, אבל נדון בזה. ומה שחשוב לי להגיד שבהקשר של הכנס הזה, האדם הלומד הוא גם האדם החוקר, והאדם הלומד הוא גם האדם הקורא. ושינוי הפרספקטיבה ושינוי היקף הטקסטים שעומד לרשותנו בתור סטודנטים ובתור חוקרים, משנה באופן מהותי גם את השאלה מה זה באמת לקרוא. וזה אחד הדברים שכאמור מעסיקים אותי בתור חוקר של ספרות, איך אפשר לקרוא טקסטים רבים, ובתור דיקן הלימודים גם מעניינת אותי השאלה איך מכשירים סטודנטים לקרוא בצורה שונה, ופה בדיוק מתחברים היטב העניינים המחקריים וההוראתיים, איך הטכנולוגיות הלמידה החדשות מאפשרות לנו ללמד ולהכשיר סטודנטים אל תוך עולם שבו אנחנו ממילא נמצאים במרחב הרחב הזה. כל חיפוש בגוגל הוא מהבחינה הזאת קריאה רחוקה. כן, איך אפשר לקרוא בעצם שאנחנו עובדים מול מאגר כמעט אינסופי של טקסטים, ומה אנחנו צריכים להבין, ובזה אני אסיים, ואיך צריך להכשיר את האדם הלומד, להבין שמה שהוא מקבל באופן דיגיטלי הוא לא ייצוג פשוט איזושהי מציאות, אלא תוצר של תיווכים, אלגוריתמים רבים, ואני בטוח שהנושאים האלה מדברים פה אל לב כולכם, ואני מאחל לכם הצלחה רבה בכנס. אני אשאר עוד קצת, אבל אעזוב בקרוב. אז תודה, ברוכים הבאים ובהצלחה.
נהדר. שוב תודה רבה לאופיר, ואני מתכבד להזמין את ראש המרכז לחקר חדשנות בטכנולוגיות למידה באוניברסיטה הפתוחה, פרופסור אינה בלאו.
שמתי את זה על הדסקטופ וזה נעלם. לא, זה היה על הדסקטופ. לפני דקה.
הוא למעלה האחרונה להכיל את זה. זה היה פה פשוט. זה?
ונסה?
סקרין זה משהו
לא.
אחר?
לא.
וזה לא נעלם.
אפשר להחזיר את מה ששמתי על הדסקטופ? אני פשוט רוצה להראות את המאמרים שחייבת בשקט. הנה. כן. חושבת? כן, יופי. בוקר טוב לכולם, אני אהיה מאוד קצרה וסליחה על הכשל הטכנולוגי הקצר. ברוכים הבאים לכנס צ'ייס החמישה-עשר לחקר טכנולוגיות למידה. אני חייבת להגיד שבתור אחת שהייתה בכנס הזה כמעט מההתחלה, אני פשוט מתקשה להאמין שאנחנו כבר 15 שנים נפגשים בחג צ'ייס הזה מדי שנה, והשנה, כמו שאתם הבנתם, אנחנו התרכזנו ליום אחד, מה שמקל מאוד על המפגש המקצועי והבין אישי בין כל העוסקים בתחום טכנולוגית למידה, בין חוקרים לבין סטודנטים. אני רוצה לנצל את ההזדמנות ולהודות לכל החברים בוועדת התוכנית של הכנס, חוקרים, עשרות חוקרים ממוסדות שונים בארץ, שבזכותם יש לנו תוכנית עשירה שאתם רואים על השקף. אנחנו נתחיל בהרצאה של חוקרת מובילה בתחום, שתכף יורם יציג אותה. אנחנו נמשיך לשלושה סבבים מלאים בהרצאות מכל מיני סוגים. בנוסף להרצאות מלאות, אנחנו נמשיך במסורת של הרצאות בזג, הרצאות קצרות, מבוססות על מאמרים קצרים. אנחנו נרחיב את הפורמט של שולחנות עגולים, מה שהתחלנו בשנה שעברה והתגלה כהצלחה גדולה. נמשיך במסורת מבורכת של פוסטרים, מושב הפוסטרים, ונמשיך גם לבצע סיורים באולפני האוניברסיטה הפתוחה, סיורים מאחורי הקלעים, כדי שתראו איך אנחנו מקיימים הוראה מרחוק. אנחנו נסיים היום במושב נעלה, שהוא מוקדש לזכר מחקר ועשייה של חוקרת מובילה בתחום, פרופסור מיקי רונן. אני רוצה להודות גם לוועדה המארגנת של התוכנית הזאת, וכל האנשים שאתם רואים על השקף, כל אחד בתחומו תרם לעשייה הרבה שאנחנו נוכל לראות אותה היום, במהלך היום, ובראשונה אני רוצה להודות ליושבת ראש של הוועדה המארגנת של הכנס, עמיתת מחקר החדשה שלנו, תרצה לוטרמן, שנכנסה ממש לפני כמה חודשים בשיא הארגון וניצחה ביד רמה על כל האופרציה המורכבת הזאת. אני מודה גם לדוקטור שיר אתגר, ששולחת לנו ברכה חמה מניו יורק הקרה, שהייתה עד לא מזמן עמיתת המחקר, והתקבלה לאוניברסיטת קולומביה לפוסט-דוקטורט שם. אסנת צרפתי ואסף שמבי, שני אנשים שבלעדיהם הכנס הזה פשוט לא היה מתקיים, כי הם עבדו ימים כלילות כדי שהכל יתקתק. ואני רוצה לעבור למסורת שלנו, מסורת של שנים, תחרות מאמר מצטיין של סטודנט או סטודנטית, כדי שתבינו איך האופרציה הזאת מתנהלת מכל המאמרים המלאים שהסטודנט הוא הכותב הראשון שלהם, נבחרים בפינצטה מאמרים שאתם רואים, השנה הם 5 מאמרים שאתם רואים על השקף. אני מזמינה את כל אחד מכם להגיע ולהקשיב להצגות המאמרים האלו, הם מסומנים בתוכנית הכנס במדליה, והם באמת מאמרים שמגיעה להם מדליה כל אחד מהם, הם מאמרים באיכות מאוד גבוהה, והיה לנו מאוד קשה לבחור מאמר אחד. בסופו של דבר, אחרי שמאמרים נשלחו ל30 חוקרים מובילים בתחום, ממוסדות שונים, באמצעות הדירוג הזה, אנחנו הצלחנו להגיע ולבחור את המאמר הזוכה. והמאמר הזוכה, השנה, הוא מאמר של טל יכין, בהנחיה של פרופסור מירי ברק מהטכניון. אני מזמינה את טל לעלות על הבמה כדי לקבל את הפרס.
אני אנצל את המעמד המיוחד הזה לשלוש תודות מאוד קצרות. קודם כל, כן, הגובה שלי דורש מחאה משמעותית. קודם כל, הפרופסורית שלי, שהיא סופר מקצועית, שאני כל יום לומדת ממנה משהו חדש, המנחה של המחקר שלי, שלצערי היא לא פה, אבל אני שולחת לה מפה תודה גדולה. למממנים שעומדים מאחורי המחקר שלי, EAT Food, זה גוף של המכון האירופי לחדשנות וטכנולוגיה, שתומך בנו, יש לנו שותפים למחקר, וגם להם אני מודה, וכמובן לכם שבחרתם במאמר הזה, זה מופלא ומקסים, ותודה רבה רבה.
איזה יופי. ברכות ותודה. כן. מעולה. אני עוד דקה אעבור לאנגלית כדי לברך את האורחת שלנו, שעד עכשיו הצלחתי יחסית לתרגם תרגום סימולטני. אז with your permission, I'll switch to English. And I want to welcome Dr. Vanessa Dennen to the 15th Chase Conference on the Study of Innovation and Learning Technologies, and tell you, the audience, a little bit about our esteemed guest. Yesterday, Vanessa gave a talk at a smaller forum here at the Open University. And in that talk, we were introduced to her worldview. I found it fascinating to learn that Vanessa began her academic career as an undergraduate student in the radio, television, film, the RTF program at Northwestern University. She told us that that program exposed her to documentary filmmaking, and how that led her to the realization that documentary films don't really document an objective reality, but rather are an interpretation of that reality. And that actually echoes what Ophir mentioned before with literature. She told us how that formative experience, in conjunction with an ethnography course, influenced her understanding of her role as a researcher, and taught her humility in regards to our ability as social scientists to objectively study the social world. She further described how her experiences as an online learner and blogger in the late 90s and early 2000s sensitized her to the complexity of the ethics of researching online behavior in general and of online learners in particular. Given this background, it's no surprise that these formative events provided a powerful foundation for a highly impressive and productive career. So a few words about that career. Dr. Vanessa Dennen is a professor of instructional systems and learning technologies at Florida State University, and the co-editor-in-chief of the highly prestigious journal, The Internet and Higher Education. Her research focuses on emerging technologies for formal and informal learning, networked knowledge activities, and the development of identity and community in social media environments. She co-leads the Students, Social Media and Schools Research Group at Florida State University. Vanessa has authored more than 75 journal articles and book chapters, which have appeared in publications such as Instructional Science, Distance Education, Computers in Human Behavior, the Handbook of Distance Education, the Handbook of Research on Educational Communications and Technology, among others, and has also co-edited books including Virtual Professional Development and Informal Learning in Online Environments with Jennifer Myers, and Social Presence and Identity in Online Learning with Patrick Leventhal. At Florida State University, Vanessa teaches courses on instructional design and research methods for new and emerging technologies, and she designed and taught the Social Media for Active Learning, MOOC, in 2014. MOOC was the one word in English when we had the titles of the finalists of the winning student paper, the Best Student Paper Award, so that was one word you could identify in the titles there. And it's a very successful MOOC. She received 7 teaching and mentoring awards at Florida State University since 2013. And she has a PhD in Instructional Systems Technology and an MS in Educational Psychology from Indiana University and an MS in Instructional Design, Development, and Evaluation from Syracuse University. Before I invite Vanessa to give her talk on designing and implementing networked knowledge activities in schools, my last tip for those who want to learn more about Vanessa is to visit her excellent blog, where her clear writing gives many more thought-provoking and informative insights into her life as a social thinker and researcher. Welcome, Vanessa.
Okay, is that adjusted for the short person now? Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here to give this talk. This has been my first visit to Israel, and although I'm told the weather has been unusual and suboptimal, I have thoroughly enjoyed the hospitality here and getting to learn more about this country. So that has been a wonderful thing. And prior to coming here, I was, of course, connected to some people here through social media. That's one of the powerful things about social media, is it can be a great connector, a great network builder for all of us. As adults, we tend to experience that network building to the extent that we are interested in it and personally comfortable with it. We build our networks out of our friends and family members, or we build our networks among our colleagues, or people who we don't even know yet in real life, but who we think share interesting ideas and insights and might want to get to know better, either just virtually or in the future. I'm prefacing my talk this morning with that idea because it's something that I want you to keep in mind. I want you to think about the powerful ways that you use social media and related social technologies to help you navigate your world every day, whether it be for professional development purposes, things that you do at work, or if it is for your personal and more informal learning purposes, the kinds of things that you do at home. To give you an example of that, for me, I will say, always an aspirational gardener. I still have a lot to learn, but I learn a lot online about gardening. I don't have all of the answers myself. I have critters who come and eat the vegetables that I'm growing, and I need to figure out how to better protect my garden. I go online and learn more about that. I want to find out what grows in my climate. I go online and learn more about that. And it's not just that I'm going to Wikipedia or a static website. I'm finding the people who are the thought leaders, who are sharing the knowledge objects online. They're interacting with others. They're answering questions. They're sharing what they're doing. Gardeners telling me, now is the time when I'm planting tomatoes. And I think, oh, and you live in the same climate zone as I do. Maybe now is the time when I should plant tomatoes as well. They show me how they plant them in their garden with a video that they uploaded to YouTube, and I think, oh, I will follow the same method because this person is an expert. This is how social media can be a powerful learning tool as we build our networks. But as we shift our thoughts to schools, and in particular think of children in a K-12 school system, maybe not as much on the K end as on the upper end, we have some big issues to deal with about what role social media might play in the schools and what role these guys here, our smartphones, might play. One of the things that we know is that they tend to be fairly ubiquitous, fairly ever-present in that setting. I have spent a lot of time in a high school with one of my research teams in the last few years. And in this high school setting, the school has formally forbidden the use of smartphones, but they don't prevent the children from bringing them to school because the parents would object too much. One of the things we found out was that the parents are a driving force in wanting the kids to always have a phone because they want to reach their children at any time. And they want a response, even in the middle of class. It's actually a huge disruption. And once the children have phones, they obviously have social media. I'm told that it's the same here and that it's happening at even a younger age than we're seeing in the US. We see it happening right as they rise into middle school, around age 11, 12. If you walk through the hallways, the second the kids get out of class, they take their phone and they go like this. They're checking things out on Instagram. They're sending a Snapchat to their friends. I guess here they're getting on WhatsApp, right? We don't use that so much in the US, but it doesn't matter what the tool is. That's what the behavior is. So we know that it's this force that we need to reckon with in schools. But what do we do with this? What role can this play in learning and in classrooms? And this is a challenge for us to figure out. I always like to start from the point of, is there a role that it can or should play in learning in the classroom setting? Because the system wasn't broken before we had smartphones and social media to potentially access in the classroom. We've brought the technology in, often for other purposes, and there are people who are studying the use of technology and its effects on our everyday lives, and then there's a different subset of people and a much smaller subset of people who are looking at classroom uses of these tools. One of the things that I've seen so far in the research here is that it's really been at the level of what Borko calls an existence proof, that we're just doing a little bit of research to see what could potentially be done. It exists and we can try it, but we're not getting much further into these larger uses, the way that any teacher might pick up these tools, if they so choose, to use it powerfully in the classroom. And that's what I want to do today, is to talk a little bit about how we can take these tools, the hard technology of our phone and then the softer technology of the social media that resides on and through our phones, to be able to, if we so choose, develop powerful learning experiences that are well aligned with the learning objectives that we have for our students. So just to start, what comes to mind for you when you think of social media? Forget everything I just said a moment ago. Somebody shout out an answer for me. What do you think of?
Fun.
Fun? Yes, it certainly is fun. Friends, yes, we connect to our friends quite a lot on social media. Oh, you don't like it. Oh, to give you all the insecurities that everybody else is going off and living this wonderful life, and your life perhaps is not quite as shiny and happy. Yeah, that's a difficult part of social media. Note that these responses have not been about learning. We don't have an obvious connection yet. A waste of time. Yes, we hear a waste of time quite often. And so, social media and learning is not these things. It's not the memes, although they are everywhere. And I find that the cats of the internet always show up. Even, does it happen here? In the US, we find that people sneak cat memes into their academic presentations all the time. Now, if you think about that for a moment, these do serve a purpose. We're all smiling now. We like seeing the cat memes. It's a moment of showing the human side of us all. I'm not really learning anything from it, but it is giving us a moment of levity and connection. But it's not learning. Okay, what else would not be social media and learning? This. So we've got here YouTube channels with the unboxing videos of the things that people get. That's one of my sister's breakfasts on Instagram. I have no idea why she shared that, but she did, okay? Kim Kardashian had her date night at the Oscars this past week, and she put that on Twitter. I put on Facebook when I passed through the airport in Paris to get here, and look at that. 87 people who I know liked or loved that. Isn't that great? But it still has nothing to do with learning. This is the fun stuff. There still can be an element of fun with social media and learning. And the images that you see on the screen here are from a social media video-based tool, Flipgrid, that I was using with one of my classes. What you see here are the images that we recorded to represent our videos, and they allow you to put stickers on top of them. I thought to myself, of course, that nobody in my graduate level course was going to play with these, that was just going to be frivolous. We would record our videos, and then when it asked you to take your photograph at the end, everybody would just stare seriously at the camera, maybe smile a little bit. But then my students found the stickers. And these graduate students, doctoral students, who are not teenagers anymore, started doing some very playful things with them. And it got to the point where we started actually posing for pictures deliberately with the stickers. It added some fun and some motivation to the class. Now, that alone is not the reason to use social media to support learning, but I did want to show that there's a tiny bit of the fun side here. What I encourage people to think about when we consider social media as used for learning is that first, we have the tools, and there is a tendency to think in a tool-first mode. Are we using Facebook? Are we using Twitter, YouTube, whatever? But what sits underneath the tools? What do the tools do for us? That's the much more important thing for us to consider. So the tools give us access to information, and the tools give us access to people. On their own, there's nothing that fascinating about the tools, but the people and the information that we can access can be quite meaningful to us. This becomes about bringing additional resources into our classroom, if that's something that we desire as teachers. Now, going back to the research for a minute and seeing where things are at right now, we know from surveys of the general population that phone ownership is high among everybody, and that be especially teenagers and college-age students. And we know that social media use is very high in that population. But use for education is still very much at this level of being trendy and uncertain, and people worrying about it being distracting. Now, I'm here to talk about social media use in education this morning, but one of the things I find is that it's not a great idea to go out and be an evangelist and to try to sell everybody on using it, but rather to come in and be a realist about it. And to say, sometimes we don't want to use this, and sometimes we have poor reasons for using it. If you want to use it because it's trendy, that's probably not a good idea. You don't have very good pedagogical motivation. If you don't know why you're using it, and I do hear that from a lot of people, I think I should use it. People are. I'm not sure why or what I would do. Then don't. One of the things we see in the research is that people who use it for these reasons are not very successful, and the students see through all of that, and they get off task, and they start doing very distracting things. This diagram here comes from a study that I did in a school. It's an activity systems diagram. And what it is demonstrating are all these places where there are tensions in the classroom for the students and the teachers. So in this case, the students are bringing in these tools. They had mobile phones that they all brought into the classroom. They had Chromebooks that were available through the school. They have their Google accounts and all of their accounts on the social networking systems. If you have your phone, you can access, and a data plan, you can access anything in the school. If you're on the school Chromebook, not so much. So we have a system of haves and have-nots here. There were rules that were creating all of these tensions about using social media in the classroom because there were rules about using your smartphone that the school set up. And then the teacher has to decide if they're going to enforce those rules all the time, enforce those rules just when they want to prevent students from using phones socially, or if they want to open it up and just allow people to do what they're going to do in the classroom. There are tensions surrounding who can be connected to whom on different networks. We tend to forbid the children, those who are under 18, from connecting to adults on the social media platforms. And when we say that, what we really mean is I don't want to see these adults and these children connecting and looking at photographs from each other's personal lives and sending direct messages on Instagram. I think that might be inappropriate. We're not necessarily talking about I don't want them to use a tool like Flipgrid or to engage in some form of social bookmarking together on Digo, which is a tool that I can't imagine people getting on for purely fun and social purposes. It's very business-like when you get on there. So there are these different tools that can be used, but it's very complex, and that's why I wanted to bring in this diagram to show that there are a lot of tensions to consider when you make the choice to use the phones and bring in social media in the classroom. These tensions that we found were the teachers were struggling in terms of their pedagogical content knowledge. They had a sense that they needed to change their teaching approach, but they didn't quite know how to do it. They're not prepared for it. Once they allow students to use this, they aren't quite so sure how to tell when the students are on task or off task. You know, it's just a few swipes away from doing something fun with your friends as opposed to focusing on your lessons. That classroom management again and the teacher-student distance becomes an issue. Figuring out where in the curriculum it's relevant to do technology integration. The schools that I've been studying struggle with whose technology is going to be used. Are we doing bring your own device practices here, BYOD? And if we do that, who can access what? One of the schools that I studied, this was quite interesting, the school media specialist was very motivated to offer professional development for all of the teachers on using social media. And she is this wonderful, dynamic person. She has so much experience. She's gone off to her professional organizations, received extra training on using the tools and helping others use them pedagogically. She came back to her school and she wanted to teach a workshop for the teachers on Twitter. Well, the first problem was that the teachers didn't all have Twitter accounts already. The second problem was that the teachers didn't all want to put that on their phones. So they said, no problem. We're going to do this in one of the computer labs. Well, you probably can see what's coming next. Twitter is blocked on the school network in the computer labs. So now the IT people at the school have to get involved to unblock Twitter. She got permission to do that. They unblocked Twitter for the school. She taught everybody who came to the workshop, and she said a lot of teachers showed up, how to use Twitter. She gave them ideas for how to use it for their own professional development, how to tap into the different teacher networks, and she also gave them some ideas for activities they might do with their students, ways of getting them engaged in Twitter-based conversations. And then, as soon as the workshop ended, the IT people turned Twitter off. And the teachers couldn't use it. And that communicated a pretty strong message to the teachers about the way that their administration viewed using social media in the schools. Only it was confusing to them because they'd also been hearing that it was a newer technology trend and it was something they should be doing. So these mixed messages that they're receiving, and then the technology management underneath it all, becomes quite challenging. They were able at the school to then work to get the restrictions lifted for certain groups of people at certain times in certain classrooms, and there were a few teachers who moved on to do some pretty interesting classroom activities with Twitter. But it took a lot of work, perhaps more work than one would expect, and you would have to be really motivated to make it happen. So these are some of the challenges that we face. Another challenge that we face right now is this tool-first mentality, this idea of I want to use, insert the name of whichever tool it is here, in the classroom. Okay, what are you going to do with it? Oh, you don't know yet? Well, how are you going to figure that out? How are you going to use it in a meaningful way with your students? You know, my background is not as a technologist, it's as an instructional designer. And the first thing you learn on the first day of your graduate education in instructional design is that it should always start with a learning objective. With a learning objective in mind, then you lay the blueprint for everything else that you're going to do. Never start with the tool. The tool comes later. And that brings me to this framework that I want to share with you today, the Network Knowledge Activity Framework. And this is a way of promoting active learning in social media environments by determining specifically which kinds of activities you want your students to do. You start thinking about what the interactions are that they should have and what the outcomes will be of those interactions. And this framework was developed by looking at the types of activities that successful people, successful adults, professionals, engage in on their own to support their own learning and professional development in social media environments. So basically, the people who own social media for learning, what do they do? How do we take what they do and break it down into concrete types of activities and then consider how we build those into classroom experiences? So that's what I've done with this Network Knowledge Activity Framework. This here is an overview of the entire framework, but I'm going to go through each of the network knowledge activities separately and give you some ideas about how they might be used. They all occur in this larger network setting. So if you're on social media, you need to start connecting to other people through whichever tools or collection of tools, and often it is a collection of tools you choose to use. The focus ultimately is on something related to knowledge, some form of learning, but the activities can differ. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is collecting. And this is where I ask people to confess to me because I always have some every time. Who out here today collects things online? Who is what I call a chronic bookmarker? You see things and you bookmark, or you save, download. Yeah, I see there's a number of you out there. It's a very natural human activity for us to engage in, to find something that we think will be meaningful to us or maybe meaningful to somebody else at some point in time. We don't always know, we don't always have an immediate use for it, but we save it. Do you go back to them? Sometimes, yes? Sometimes, have you ever saved so many things that you can't find them anymore? Or you can't remember why exactly you saved this thing, even if it was really important to you 3 months ago? Yeah, that happens with collecting. Do you ever collect things and then go take another look at them later and think, oh, this wasn't so good after all? That happens too. Collecting is imperfect, but I consider collecting to be the gateway to engaging in these knowledge activities. A collecting activity that you could do with students would be to send them on a scavenger hunt. Give them things to find online and then ask them to save them or share, which is a different activity, to some sort of shared location for the class to use. You could even start to push that a little bit further and ask the students to rate them or score items later on. But initially, it's just going out and finding things and saving them. Now, that may sound like it's a pretty low-level activity, and it is, but we do a lot of lower-order learning activities just to get people prepared to engage in learning with higher-order skills. It's just like every time we introduce a new concept in a classroom, we need to provide students with a definition of what we're talking about and show them the relationship between the different concepts. And it's from there that we move on to things like application and evaluation and synthesis. So by sending students out to collect things, you're showing them, hey, there are all of these resources out here in the world. And that starts to set them off on that path of ultimately becoming lifelong learners, showing them that there's more than just fun memes and videos to be found, but there are different ways of using these tools. One of the big benefits of this is that the instructors have the ability to see what the students are collecting. And some of you may relate to this experience where you perhaps have a student who didn't perform the way that they wanted to on a test or an assessment. You read one of their papers and you think, that's not how I taught about this in my class. Where did they get this from? And then you talk to the student and you find out that they watched a YouTube video that was not a very reliable source. They searched for a whole bunch of things. I've talked to instructors who have found that students where a whole class has, without their knowing, found and shared a particular resource that was not a good one. Or they found and shared one that was a great one that the instructor might want to use again. So by integrating sharing activities into the classroom, the instructor becomes involved in that process and can help the students learn more about quality. So the tacit objectives of doing some sort of collection activity is working with the students to help identify the online resources on your area and to help identify those. Now, collecting can result in a lot of things that we don't necessarily use or that we can't find our way through effectively and efficiently when we want to. And so that brings in the next knowledge activity, curation. And we think of curation normally as something that happens in museums and archives, with that basic idea being that we take a larger collection of items and we cull them down, we become selective, and we choose a smaller collection of items that have some sort of meaning or purpose together. We put them in a specific order. We give them titles. We might add annotations. We may explain what you'll find if you go to this resource or why we've chosen to share this particular resource. And all of that takes a collection and makes it much more meaningful and manageable for either for ourselves to use, because you can curate for yourself, or for other people to use. A good example of a curation activity would be to have students build a class knowledge base on a topic. So again, we know that students are going out and accessing these materials to help them study. If we ask them to, as a group, collect a whole bunch of materials, but then we start to get the students to evaluate those materials and say why they're sharing them and to be more selective about it, perhaps to delete some of the ones that were shared that are not so useful after all, to organize them maybe into subtopics, they can create a very useful resource for their class to use, for everybody to continue to use after the class is over, and perhaps even what we call a legacy resource that the instructor can continue to use with future classes, and perhaps have future classes refine, edit, and continue to build onto that resource. And you can see where this works with collecting as a foreshadowing activity, and sharing is an activity that happens afterwards. And this is an activity that encourages students to be reflective and evaluative of the items that they are sharing. And if they do this in a networked sense with each other, then they really do have to make some difficult decisions about, is this a good resource or not? Is this one better or is this one better? If I can only include 3 of these 12 for other people, for the next class to use, I mean, think about the responsibility there. Now it's not just my own studying, but we're creating something for the next class to use. Wow, we really have to discuss these items and use them wisely. It's amazing what happens when students start to engage in those conversations and think about sharing with that future class, a big responsibility. So that brings us to sharing. We share all the time. If you consider your day so far, I bet a lot of you have engaged in some form of sharing. You've been on your phone, you found something that somebody else would like, or maybe you don't even know who else would like it, and you just shared it in some broad sense to some place like Twitter or on Facebook where interested people just might come along and find it. Sharing is a key part of participating in the network knowledge economy. A sharing activity I like to use with a lot of my students is a knowledge sharing and tracking one, because you share and you think, so what? What happened with what I shared? I have no idea. But if you share items that you have either created yourself, so if you work in an area where your students are actively creating things, this term I'm actually teaching a class on open educational resources, and my students are creating open educational resources about open educational resources for educators and instructional designers, and then we're sharing them later this term. We're in the creation phase right now. It's still early. But we have plans to share them, and then we're going to start tracking them so that we can see how widely they've been accessed and used by other people. And that adds additional meaning for people to see that not only did I share something, but what I shared made a difference for somebody else. it becomes part of building networks because people see the things that we share and then they want to follow us because we are identified as people who share worthwhile things. Or we see who has shared with us if we're more on the consumer side of things, which is where our students may be initially, but we find the people who we want to follow and we build our knowledge networks. And someday maybe we get bold enough to actually interact directly with those people. These are benefits that extend beyond that time of being in the classroom with the instructor who's promoting these network knowledge activities. These are lifelong learning skills in the social media knowledge economy. So the next network knowledge activity is brokering. And brokering is a very specific kind of sharing that takes place. So it means that we take something very purposefully from one group and we bring it and direct it toward another group of people. Sometimes we do this without fully giving acknowledgement. I bet some of you can relate to this experience of finding something online, finding something through one of your online social networks, and you want to share it with perhaps some people you work with, but you don't want to tell them that you got it from your online network, your online friends. So instead you say, oh, a colleague from France shared this with me, and change the language a little bit and when you bring it into your environment. But you're giving your point of origin very purposefully and bringing it to a designated set group of people. Brokering occurs as we engage in developing our professional learning networks online. And this is something that I frequently ask my students to do, is to start to build their network online, to connect to other people in ways that will be meaningful to them personally. That means that everybody in my class will be developing a different professional learning network online. It will be different in its size. It will be different in the tools that they choose to use. That's all based on their own needs and comfort. It will be different in the topical areas that they choose to investigate, because they have, even in my class right now, which is an education class, I have somebody who's deeply interested in nursing education, and I have somebody else who works in a preschool setting, and they are going to be building very different networks. But they still find things in these networks that they're building that are valuable to our class, and so they broker back the knowledge that's valuable to our class. And they learn to think very purposefully about who is in their network and what those people will benefit from. So brokering really is every bit as much of a network building activity as it is a sharing activity. It becomes a very authentic activity, and it's something that we continue to do throughout our lives if we're interacting online. Then we have negotiating. This is where it gets fun, right? This is where we really start to talk to each other. Sometimes talking about ideas and concepts in general, and sometimes we are talking about the knowledge objects that we have found, that we have collected, that we have shared or constructed. To negotiate, I like to send my students out to be problem solvers. So I send them out online, and I ask them to find some sort of problem or case that's relevant. That way I don't have to come up with it. There are so many examples out there. And then I have them work online to find the resources that will help solve that problem. And hopefully you can see structurally in this, I'm teaching them how to do the same kinds of activities that ultimately they should be doing as working professionals when they encounter a problem. Now, they may not look online for a problem at that time, but they will have a problem, and then they'll go online and find some expertise, find some knowledge objects, but they can't just use them. They have to negotiate among themselves to figure out what best matches our problem. What's the best solution among these that we've seen? Do we want to take bits and pieces from these and work them together, perhaps? I like this one. I don't like this one. What do we agree on? All of that negotiation is really important. So we might collect and curate initially, and then sit there and negotiate to figure out what our ultimate solution is going to be. And this leads to the final network knowledge activity, which is construct. And when we engage in construction online, we are building something that didn't exist before. We may be building it out of pieces that we've found online already. So they may be things that already are out there. It's some form of remixing. Or it may be that we created something entirely new ourselves, inspired by what we saw online, or just something we were motivated to create. And this becomes something that we can do with other people, or we do it and then we share it with other people. Perhaps we start to engage in some form of brokering as well. This taps into a popular concept right now in the world of open educational resources and open pedagogy as well, which is the concept of a renewable assessment. Think about how many papers you have written throughout your career. The papers that you have written for an instructor. What happens to them? I don't know, right? Hopefully the instructor actually read it when they gave you a grade for the paper, and then it was over and done with. We didn't need it again. It has no life beyond that moment when it was used as an assessment. If you think about that, that's a lot of effort that somebody is putting into creating something that has no greater purpose than just that little bit of assessment. But what if we create things that other people can use? So we can ask students in a class to do something for a public education benefit. Maybe create some sort of a public service announcement related to the topic on the class, or create an educational video of some sort. It might even be that the resources that they've curated, that they're really packaging them up very nicely and finding so that they will be highly useful by outside groups of people. So this is all about creating renewable assessments, and then when you're done, you go and you share it with other groups of people. Or you might act as a broker out of your classroom now, so you see the things that your classmates have created and shared with the larger class, and you think, oh, what Stephen created would be very useful to this group of people I belong to. And you manage brokering that connection there. So that's constructing, and again, it works with sharing and brokering. So all of these activities work together. It's what I like to call knowledge activity math. So you need to think about what are the different steps in an overall lesson, in an overall outcome that I'd like to see, and break it down. From there, it becomes possible to find the appropriate tools or collection of tools, as the case may be, for students to use. Once you know what those are, it's possible to create some very clear directions or guidelines for an assignment, and to invite students to engage in it authentically. They can become quite motivated when after they get over the initial nerves, that they can become quite motivated to see that they have the opportunity to do something real and authentic that other people are going to benefit from, that other people might comment on or see. That raises the need to do a really good job on something when you know that other people might see it. I always find it a little bit disheartening, but I understand when I see the research on the quality of student work, and it continuously reinforces the idea that students do better work when they know that they have a pure external audience than when their only audience is their faculty member. So all of these network knowledge activities push us to be thinking about who that potential external audience is, because that's a big part of social media. You want to have something that you're proud of. So you may start out more in a consumption frame of mind, where you're going and seeing what other people have shared and building a network of people who you think you can learn from and who share the things that you want to use. But over time, you find that you have things to share, and you become a more active producer within your knowledge networks. So I've situated all of this in things we can do in the classroom, but I definitely want you to be thinking about it as how we take these skills that can be developed in the classroom and now set our students up to be effective lifelong learners who use social media tools as meets their knowledge needs in whichever manner is comfortable to them personally, so that they can achieve their professional goals. As I wrap this up, I want you to keep in mind that really, the tools are just the tools. The tools are going to come and go. The tools are going to continuously change and evolve. Sometimes it feels like a job unto itself to keep all of the tools straight and what features they have, but that's not the important part here. The important part is what you do with the tools, and that brings us back to network knowledge activities. Because learning ultimately is about doing something with knowledge, and these skills, to collect, curate, share, broker, negotiate, and construct, are knowledge skills that everybody needs in order to be effective in online environments. So with that, I thank you very much for coming and listening to me this morning. I give you this challenge moving forward to think about how you can use social media for very purposeful learning and to focus on knowledge activities rather than focusing on tools or to focus on following trends. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And please don't be shy about speaking English with me, because I assure you that your English is so much better than my Hebrew. I mean, you have no idea. Yes. Okay, so the question is touching on how do I navigate things from course to course? Do I switch groups and tools or whatever I'm using there? And also, how do I manage it with students who may not previously have accounts? Well, I'll tackle the account part of that first, which is we think about some of the popular social networking tools, things like Facebook. I just don't use Facebook at all for educational purposes. I don't use it because in some of my research with high school students and college students, what I have learned is that it's not a platform they want to use for learning. They don't want, some students are comfortable, but some really are not, and some don't have accounts. And Facebook is very tricky with that. Technically, you're supposed to just have one account, a real name account, and I don't want to force people to do things they're uncomfortable with. I would feel much more comfortable asking somebody who doesn't have a Twitter account to sign up for a Twitter account for the class, and then I tell them, you can use whatever name you want. You can be Mickey Mouse, that's fine. As long as I know that's you, it's fine. So they don't have to feel that kind of discomfort. A lot of the tools that I end up using may not be the mainstream social media tools, or I may have alternates for students to use who have some sort of discomfort. I try to not situate too much on any one platform. And I found that hasn't been a problem. But a very real issue to deal with is this idea that learning is now taking place on a public stage, maybe a semi-public stage. Maybe I have things in a group setting where only certain people can see it. The first thing I do is I offer my students some pretty extensive guidelines before we do anything on social media in the classroom, where I make them fully aware of the related identity and privacy issues, as well as their various options that they can choose so that they can be comfortable with what they're doing, whether that's setting up new accounts, using pseudonyms. I ask them to come to me if their questions aren't answered in that document and if they need extra help. So that's to create comfort for them. At the end of the term, if it's appropriate, I ask them, or I remind them that everything is graded and they can now go delete things that they have shared if they want to delete things. I might just close everything off and it never gets used again, but it sits as something that just the students in that class can go back and revisit. Or we might, as a class, as a final activity, create a best of somewhere else and then save it as a PDF, and everybody can take a copy with them, and then I delete everything that the class created. Or if I think something is going to become a living document for future classes, or it's intended to be a renewable assessment, then all of my students know from the beginning that this is what we are doing and that they should only share on there to the degree that they are comfortable with what they have shared moving forward and being used by other people. So I try to put the decisions in their hands with as much knowledge as possible. And I think that's really important because it's also teaching them the thought processes and skills that they need should they go on to become educators who use social media with their own students, but also for themselves as they continue to navigate this environment and all of the tricky parts of it. Yes?
I have some reservations about the urge or the need to use social media for learning, because we have our LMS, learning management systems, which are good enough. And by using Facebook, Twitter, to learn with Twitter, it means like to reduce learning to messages that, of 150 spaces or whatever. Looks like the messages that Donald Trump is making.
Please, not in my classroom.
It's a little more than that. Same for Facebook, that does not allow you to load, to use all kinds of files. It means Facebook is more of a kind of picture thing, show me your cats, show me good things. And when it comes to study biology or heavy subject, deeper processing, then why, I'm asking myself, why being dragged after those trendy things just to make students happy and losing the depth of learning? And I'm not saying which side I'm on, I'm just thinking that we should consider those issues before jumping into this being trendy for the students.
No, this is
To think about.
No, this is a great thing to think about. It's something that I think about and I talk about with people very often. So if you couldn't hear, the question was sort of a why should we be using this when we already have tools that are set up for learning, like our learning management systems? Why should we move to Twitter, which reduces the amount of text that we share to these tiny little sound bites like the American president? But why should we do this? Is it just for trends? Is it just to please students? And this is something that I think about quite a bit. Sometimes I get invited to talk at places where they say, this is the newest trend, so we need you to teach us how to do it. And I will say, I'm not convinced that you need to follow the trend. I will actually tell you, in my own classes, I have certain classes that I always use my learning management system. That's always the backbone of my course because it's necessary for a lot of file sharing, for things that need to be private, for richer conversations. It has a proper discussion board on it. So if I want a discussion board, I use a discussion board. For some of my classes, I never go outside of the learning management system. When I teach learning theory, when I teach research methods, I don't see any need to go outside of the learning management system. This term I'm teaching open educational resources. Well, that's very much like a living, breathing topic. There's a lot to find on social media. And so my students are finding and sharing great things. At the end of the term, we will be constructing and sharing out with the world what we've done. And so that becomes a meaningful use of social media. But I would say never use it because it's a trend. Use it because it somehow resonates with the type of learning activity you want to engage your students in, and that the topic itself is a topic that has an active life online where you know that your students are going to be connecting into some meaningful resources. Even if they're bad resources, sometimes that's really good because you can bring in, like if you have somebody who is an active blogger who doesn't have very accurate perspectives on things, it gives you a great example of a text to bring in and then tear apart. I have my students go out and find bad examples online all the time and bring them back into the class. Or I have them share them to, using Twitter, to a common hashtag, and then I can pull from them and find it very easily. It's easier than having them, for example, try to email me every time and then me trying to keep up with that collection. So that's when I would say use it, but certainly not all the time. It has its limits. Yes, in the back. Yes. We're not in the U.S. either, but it happens.
I don't know if this is the situation in your country, but what are your projections about this trend? Do you think that this device will be used finally in schools, or it will be eliminated and the laptops or iPads will take over?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So will phones take over in the schools, or are we just going to eliminate them? The schools that I've been doing research in the U.S., they have Chromebooks for the entire classroom, but everybody complains that the school's network is slow and it's inconvenient to check the Chromebooks in and out. It takes too much class time. And so some of the teachers have taken to allowing the students during certain activities to just take out their phones and use them. And there are online quiz tools like Kahoot that they want to use with their classes. So they violate the school's rules of phone policies, or they get special permission, just for this activity, just in this class. I think there are certain things that we can do better on our phones than we can on the laptops, but I don't think there's a replacement. Now, I realize some of this is like my own lens and my own perspective. I feel like a little part of me dies inside every time a student tells me that they wrote their paper on their phone. And yet I recognize that perhaps is, I don't even want to write an email on it, but that's me. For some of them, that may be the reality, that's the device that they have access to readily at home, and it might be a hardship to come to campus and sit in a computer lab to write a paper or do their work. So I think we're going to see a lot of this fluidity back and forth. It's going to take us a while to figure out how we ultimately want to manage all of this. And I think there's going to be a lot of personal preference coming into play as to how people access and do their works. One problem I do see with the phone, I will say, is that it makes us think we can do anything, anytime, anywhere. And sometimes that does really hurt the depth of our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you.
יש לנו גם עוד סשן עם ונסה למי שרוצה ומעוניין. כמה דברים מנהליים קצרים לפני שנצא להפסקה. כדי שתוכלו ליהנות משארית היום. אחרי ההפסקה קצרה שיש עכשיו, אנחנו מתפצלים לכמה סשנים במקביל. אחד קורה כאן, באולם הזה. יש אחד בקנבר, שזה קומה למעלה, ויש את הסשן עם ונסה שקורה בכיתה 12, שהיא גם למעלה. ואחר כך רשום לכם בתוכניות איפה כל אירוע קורה. בתוך התגי שם שלכם, שימו לב, יש לכם את השוברים של ארוחת צהריים, שתדלו לא לאבד אותם. אז יש לכם את התלושים. בתוך הערכות שלכם יש דיסק עונקים, לא שמתם לב. יש לכם את הספרון של התוכנית, ובטג שלכם יש גם קוד QR שאתם יכולים ממנו להגיע לתוכנית, ומהתוכנית אתם יכולים להגיע לקישורים לכל ההרצאות. משהו חשוב, יש לנו את הסיור לשוהם, לראות את האולפנים. חילקנו את זה לשתי קבוצות, כי היה ביקוש גבוה לסיור הזה. קיבלתם מייל באיזה קבוצה אתם, אם אתם לא זוכרים, בעמדת הרשמה רשום מי בקבוצה הראשונה של 1.5, מי בקבוצה השנייה של 2.15. זהו, יש לכם הפסקה, מקווה שתהנו מהמשך היום.